On this episode of Canadian Football League Weekly, we discuss the Week 6 games played north of the border, where the Montreal Alouettes saw their 13-game winning streak come to an end, and the Edmonton Elks just can't catch a break. Welcome to Canadian Football League Weekly, presented by the World of Football. Each week we recap the games played up north in the CFL, and we also look ahead to the next week's games. I'm your host, Randy Snow, and I'm joined by my son, Adam.
Hey there, looks like we're both rocking some Argonaut stuff after their big win this week.
Yep, fresh out of the bag. Just got this in the mail yesterday. Still a little wrinkly, but yeah, it's I kind of like it.
Yeah, that's a nice addition to the collection. Can't wait to see what other teams you got coming and what kind of different styles you got.
I actually have an Edmonton Elks shirt coming and Ottawa Red Blacks. So look for those. Hopefully they'll be here in time for next week's show.
Right on. I hope so too, because see, you got the Argos shirt, and guess what? The Argos won. Get an Elks shirt. Do the Elks win? When you got that Stampeders shirt, I'm pretty sure the Stampeders won. So
yeah, I was so rooting for the Elks this week. And last minute disappointment, but we'll get to that in a minute.
We'll get to that one. Yeah, that was something else.
Oh, it was. I was watching the entire game, and I thought, yeah, they're gonna win. They're gonna win, and then they didn't. So let's start with a happy game though. The Toronto Argonauts on Thursday night defeated the Montreal Alouettes 37-18. Toronto led this game 3-1 at the end of the first quarter. Montreal quarterback Cody Fajardo was injured at the end of the first quarter with a hamstring injury, and then he was replaced by Caleb Evans in the second quarter. Evans threw an interception that was returned for a touchdown by Toronto linebacker Wynton McManus for 10 yards, making the score 10-2. With 36 seconds left in the first half, Toronto wide receiver Janarian Grant returned a kickoff 103 yards for a touchdown. That was a great highlight, making the score 24-15 in favor of Toronto at the half. Montreal only scored 3 points in the second half and was shut out in the fourth quarter. This was the first loss for Montreal, ending their 13-game winning streak that began last season. Toronto quarterback Cameron Dukes completed 16 of 20 passes for 131 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for 46 yards. Running back Kadeem Carey ran for 96 yards, while wide receiver DeMonte Coxie had one catch for 10 yards, but it was for a touchdown. For Montreal, quarterback Caleb Evans completed 12 of 22 passes for 127 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He also ran for another 18 yards. Running back Walter Fletcher had 60 yards rushing. Wide receiver Cole Speaker had 6 catches for 70 yards, and wide receiver Charleston Rambo had 4 catches for 53 yards and a touchdown. On defense, linebacker Titus Wall had a total of 9 tackles in the game. This was a great game, and I was so happy to see Toronto beat the Alouettes. I mean, I always root for the underdog, and Toronto was definitely the underdog that night.
Yeah, you're going up against the defending champs that just put a wallop on you the last time these two teams played. Yeah, I mean, it was a 10-point game, but still, you could just tell that Montreal had, Toronto's number. And I thought for sure going into this one that this is the Alouettes game to lose. And boy, that's what happened. But hey, kudos to the Argonauts for, pulling up their bootstraps, getting back to work, and not, being scared. They were in the Alouettes building too. Not an easy place to play. So kudos to them for getting that all put together. I mean, and down goes not the last undefeated team, but down goes an undefeated team.
I disagree with you on the fact. I disagree with you on the fact that it was the Alouettes' game to lose. They didn't lose this game. Toronto won this game going away, so it was really, really good to see.
Hey, I just mean, look, they were the undefeated, defending Grey Cup champions. You're at home. They're the hottest team in the league. It was theirs to just lose. And I won't say they gave it away. The Argonauts definitely came in and earned it, and they played their butts off for it. So definitely credit. I mean, obviously, I like the Argonauts. They're kind of my main team, even though I like all the CFL teams.
Yep.
But it was nice to see the Argos pull off something that I thought for sure they weren't going to be able to do, and that's the CFL for you. I mean, these teams play each other so much and so frequently that you know they can win any of those matchups. Like we got a team we'll talk about later that they're going to play again next week. Like
Yeah.
these teams see a lot of each other, obviously, and the Alouettes and Argonauts in the same division. So I don't know. I just thought for sure that this was Montreal's, that they were the best team. It doesn't help that Cody Fajardo went down either. I mean, it wasn't even like that scary of a thing. Like you just see him running off to the sideline, all of a sudden he's kind of like coming up limping a little bit, like he just tweaked something. So I don't know what his status is. I haven't seen an update on what his timetable or his injury exactly. So
no, I haven't either.
It gets better. I mean, I'd love to see the Alouettes, keep going with at full strength. I mean, I want all the teams to play at full strength, but that's a little bummer to see a few quarterbacks this year kind of taking taking some injuries. All right, on Friday night, saw the Winnipeg Blue Bombers defeat the Calgary Stampeders in a close one, 41-37. Winnipeg starting quarterback Zach Collaros returned to the lineup after missing last week's game with an injury. This was a close, back-and-forth game with fumbles and interceptions by both teams throughout the game. In the second quarter, Winnipeg cornerback Derek Nichols intercepted a pass and returned it 55 yards for a touchdown, making the score 23-13 in favor of the Blue Bombers. But Calgary came back to tie the score up at 23 apiece at halftime. Calgary then had a lead of 37-33 with under 8 minutes to go, but Winnipeg took the lead back for good, 41-37 at the 3-minute warning, and hung on for the victory. Winnipeg quarterback Zach Collaros completed 27-36 passes for 344 yards, along with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Backup quarterback Chris Streveler had a rushing touchdown. Running back Brady Oliveira ran for 109 yards, while wide receiver Ontario Wilson led the receivers with 13 catches for 201 yards and a touchdown. Kicker Sergio Castillo made 4 field goals, the longest of which was from 57 yards. For the Stampeders, quarterback Jake Mayer completed 20 of 31 passes for 316 yards, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, while backup quarterback Tommy Stevens ran for 2 touchdowns. Running back Dedrick Mills ran for 131 yards, and wide receiver Clark Barnes had 5 catches for 80 yards, while on defense, cornerback Tyler Richardson made 9 tackles. Now, this is back-to-back wins for the Blue Bombers, so good to see them kind of getting back on track. I mean, I would say we completely wrote them off. We were just very concerned about them after 5 straight losses, but now, they pile on a couple of wins, and, in the CFL, they can turn things around.
I was so rooting for Calgary in this game. I really wanted them to win. I rooted for Toronto in the first game, and they won. I was rooting for Calgary in this one, and they come out just a little bit short. So I was very disappointed with the results of this one. But we knew that the Blue Bombers were going to be a good team this year. Yeah, they started out 0-4, but they've won 2 in a row now. So are they back? Hey, let's give it another week or so and find out.
Yeah. You said four in a row they lost. I keep saying 5 in a row for some reason, but they pile out a couple wins. I mean, now they're 2-4, so right in the hunt. They're not that far out of getting back in this thing. So we'll just see. They always had a good core there. It was a bit concerning to start off, with that many losses, and having Collaros back's help. Hopefully, he threw his first couple of touchdown passes of the season. So we'll see if that keeps trending in a positive direction.
Yeah. On Saturday night, it was the BC Lions over the Saskatchewan Roughriders, 35-20. It was the first loss of the season for Saskatchewan. BC was up 19-10 at halftime. BC wide receiver Justin McInnis had 9 catches for 148 yards and a touchdown in the first half. Wow. The 2 teams added field goals traded field goals in the third quarter, but BC outscored the Riders 13-7 in the final quarter for their 5th win of the season. BC quarterback Vernon Adams completed 26 of 42 passes for 451 yards, a touchdown, but 2 interceptions. He also had a rushing touchdown. Wide receiver Justin McInnis had 14 catches for and 43 yards and a touchdown in the game. Kicker Sean White made 7 field goals in the game, his longest from 50 yards. He now has a streak of 39 consecutive field goals made, tying him with the Stampeders' Rene Paredes for the second longest streak in CFL history. Congratulations to him. Yeah, for Saskatchewan in this game, quarterback Shea Patterson, who was making his second start for the injured Trevor Harris, completed 17 of 25 passes for 278 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. Running back A.J. Olette had 72 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Wide receiver Samuel Emelis led the receiving corps with 8 catches for 161 yards, and wide receiver Kean Schaefer-Baker had 4 catches for 82 yards. On defense, cornerback Roland Milligan had 5 tackles and an interception. I don't know if you saw any of this game. If you didn't watch the game itself, you didn't see the guys in the booth talking to former BC quarterback Nathan Rourke during one point in the game. He was a quarterback up there for 2 seasons in 2021 and 2022. And last year he was with the New England Patriots. This year he's going to be with the New York Giants. And it was just kind of fun. He had nothing but good things to say about the BC Lions. And he said if things don't work out in the NFL, he'd love to come back to BC and be the quarterback there too. So that was a fun little interview they had.
I mean, with Vernon Adams playing, pretty decent. I mean, you got to clean up some of the mistakes. I mean, but Vernon Adams has been slinging that ball, though. He's been a fun guy to watch. Always find it's either he finds a way to get out and make a play, or he takes a really bad sack. I caught the beginning of this game because I was at a Buffalo Wild Wings, and they actually had the CFL game on, and I was a little surprised. So I'm sitting there watching, CFL action, sitting there at a Buffalo Wild Wings. I might have been the only one, but I was all into it and caught the beginning of the game. And I mean, he made a couple of great throws, and then he'd take a really awful sack. So it just seems like he's 2 good plays and then a not so good play. A couple awesome highlights and a low light. Like it just seems like that's what you're going to get with Vernon Adams. But he's so fun to watch. I knew it as soon as he takes the ball from center. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm glued to the screen when he's scrambling around, number 3 there for BC. So but I missed the Nathan Rourke stuff. He was a guy that we were high on when he was playing.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
great young talent. And we were happy to hear that he got picked up by an NFL team, but he hasn't really. It's not like he's played any significant time in the NFL, so it's been a little bit of a bummer because he was a great CFL quarterback.
Yes,
a lot of potential there. So I don't know, little bummed about that. But hey, kudos to the Lions for getting that victory over the unbeaten Rough Riders. So no more unbeaten teams in the CFL.
No, that was the last 2 undefeated teams to go down in the same weekend.
All right, then things capped off on Sunday as the Ottawa Red Blacks defeated the Edmonton Elks in another stunner, 37-34. Edmonton had a 15-3 lead in the second quarter, but a fumble by the Elks gave the ball back to Ottawa with under 2 minutes to go before halftime. They scored a touchdown and cut the lead to 15-3, with Edmonton still leading at the half. Ottawa led 21-18 at the start of the fourth quarter and increased their lead to 34-27 with about 2 minutes to go in the game. Edmonton scored to tie the game 34 apiece with 8 seconds left in the game, but kicker Boris Beatty kicked the ensuing kickoff out of bounds, which gave the ball to Ottawa at their own 50-yard line. It only took one play for Ottawa to get into field goal range with 2 seconds left on the clock, leaving Lewis Ward to kick the game-winning 38-yard walk-off field goal for the win, also making that the 3rd straight game that Edmonton has lost on a walk-off field goal. Ottawa quarterback Drew Brown, who left last week's game versus Winnipeg with a concussion, returned this week to complete 26 of 38 passes for 480 yards, along with 2 touchdowns and an interception. Backup quarterback Dustin Crum scored a rushing touchdown. Wide receiver Khalil Pimpleton had a game with 4 catches for 153 yards and a touchdown. Wide receiver Dominique Rhymes had 7 catches for 131 yards. And wide receiver Justin Hardy had 5 catches for 110 yards and a touchdown. On defense, linebacker Javon Santos Knox had 5 tackles and 2 sacks, while kicker Lewis Ward made 5 field goals, including that game winner. For Edmonton, quarterback McLeod Bethel Thompson completed 26 of 35 passes for 272 yards and 2 touchdowns, while backup quarterback Dakota Prukop scored 2 rushing touchdowns. Wide receiver Eugene Lewis had 6 catches for 89 yards, and wide receiver Herji Mayala had 7 catches for 88 yards and a touchdown. On defense, linebacker Nick Anderson had 9 tackles and a sack. Yeah, what a crushing way to end this game again. As soon as I saw that kick go out of bounds, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. We thought the Detroit Lions were cursed. I think the Edmonton Elks might be cursed. That was just a rough way to, like, you've been this close all year long. Why even get it close to kicking it out of bounds like that? It just made no sense to me. It just, that's the stuff like that kills you. And then the next play, you're like, okay, well, maybe you could stop them. But, Ottawa gets the dart right in the middle of the field, gets in the field goal range, and still leaves 2 seconds on the clock. Like, boy, the Elks have had some bad luck. It's bad juju.
Yeah, they sure have. We've been talking and covering CFL games for a long time. I do not ever remember a team having 3 wide receivers with over 100 yards in one game, but that's what Ottawa had.
Now we've come close.
Yeah,
in the CFL, it seems a little more possible. I mean, they just spread it out so much.
Yeah, you might have one guy with 120 yards or even 150 yards receiving, but then the next closest guy maybe has 40 or 50 yards receiving. Just to have 3 guys with over 100 yards is something I have not seen. I don't think ever since we've been really covering the games with our podcast.
You could be right, but man, I feel like it might have happened one other time. I feel like there was another instance. I could be wrong, but it's rare. I mean, something like that. That's why when you see a stat line like that, it's just like you got to bring it up. 3 guys had over 100 yards receiving, so nothing to sneeze at there. I mean, they were slinging the rock all night long. I mean, 480 yards passing for Drew Brown. I mean, shoot, those receivers are going to have some pretty good numbers,
right? So,
So, hey, kudos to the Red Blacks. And I believe that's also their first road win of the season. So, they got that monkey off their back. So, but these 2 teams will also have a rematch. They're the first game of this week. So, yeah, Edmonton will go to Ottawa on Friday night to play the Red Blacks. So, I don't know. Can the Elks bounce it, turn it around? I mean, they made a big change. That was a news story we'll have coming up. But I also want to mention the Hamilton Tiger Cats on bye this week. So, do you want to talk about the news that kind of broke earlier today?
The Edmonton Elks have fired head coach and general manager Chris Jones. Assistant GM Geroy Simon has been named the interim GM, while offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach Jarius Jackson is now the interim head coach. Jones was 61-70 all time as a CFL head coach, and he did win a Grey Cup in Edmonton in 2015, and he was also named the CFL's Coach of the Year in 2018 as the head coach of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. He was the head coach and general manager of the Elks since December of 2021. So, in a way, it surprised me when I heard that, but in a way, it didn't. 0-5, and just the way that game ended. The way the last 3 games have ended. I guess the people that run the team said we got to make a change.
Yeah, it stinks to hear because I thought the Elks were so close, literally the last 3 games, especially so close to coming out with victories, and they just, man, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just all you can say is bad luck. Obviously some dumb decisions here and there kind of have cost them. Like the kickoff out of bounds did not help. We were there for the Toronto game that Toronto hit the last second field goal. It's just, I think it's a mix between bad clock management and just some bad luck, dumb plays. Those little things add up. And, but man, 3 straight losses on a last second field goal that's a tough one to swallow.
Yeah. Well, let's look at the standings in the CFL after 6 weeks. In the East Division, it's the Montreal Alouettes at 5-1, the Toronto Argonauts at 3-2, the Ottawa Red Blacks at 3-2, and the Hamilton Tiger Cats at 0-5. In the West Division, it's the BC Lions at 5-1, Saskatchewan Roughriders at 4-1, Calgary Stampeders at 2-3, Winnipeg Blue Bombers at 2-4 now, and the Edmonton Elks at 0-5. looking ahead to Week 7, here are your matchups. No Thursday night game this week, but the Elks and Red Blacks are going to play again for 2 games within 5 days on a Friday night game. Also on Friday night, it's going to be the Winnipeg Blue Bombers taking on the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Saturday, it's going to be Toronto Argonauts at the Hamilton Tiger Cats, a real storied rivalry there. And finally, on Sunday, the BC Lions at the Calgary Stampeders. The Montreal Alouettes are on bye next week. All right, let's talk about another news story that I thought was kind of interesting. CFL super fan Chris Timofeychuk, who's 51 years old, from Ottawa, was in Edmonton for the game this weekend. He is trying to set a new Guinness World Record for visiting all 9 CFL stadiums in the fastest time. He attended games in Winnipeg, BC, and Edmonton this past weekend. He's also raising money at each stop to help fight cancer. His record-breaking attempt will end at BMO Field in Toronto on July 27th. The record was set last year at 15 days by Bobby Dubois from British Columbia. Timofeychuk hopes to break the record by an hour and a half. I don't know how that's. It's still going to be 15 days, I think, but it's 15 days and so many hours between. I don't know if that's the start of the first game and the end of the second game. I'm not sure. He has to follow strict guidelines for this record-breaking attempt, including wearing a GPS tracker, which I thought was kind of funny. That's what the Guinness people are saying he has to do if he wants this record. And there's a bunch of other rules he has to go by. I think another one is he's got to stay for the entire game, and there has to be video of him, there throughout the game, whatever. So
right,
it's not as easy as just showing up and saying, "Yeah, I got a world record." Now they're putting kind of stipulations on it. But the organization that he's raising money for is called CFL Fans Fight Cancer, and it's a charity that began in 2005 and has raised over $100,000 so far for cancer research. So it's a great thing. Trying to set a world record, but more importantly, he's raising money for cancer research. So
yeah.
kudos to him.
Yeah.
Good luck and have fun on all your stadium visits.
Yeah, you gotta love it. I mean, and it also with it being the only 9 stadiums in the CFL. I mean, it's
Right.
to say it's easier is just the surface level thing. But I mean, come on, in 15 days though to do 9 stadiums, that's pretty tough.
Yeah.
It's not like the NFL, man, where you got 30 stadiums to go to, and that's a lot harder to do.
Right. Yeah. No. We'll probably have an update on that if and when he does break the record.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking about it after that July 27th game. Shoot.
Yeah.
That should be a good one.
Yep. All right. Well, hey, that's all the time we got for this week. Remember, folks, some people may love football more than we do, but nobody, and I mean nobody, loves more football than Adam and I sitting here in Kalamazoo. Until next time, I'm Randy Snow.
And I'm Adam Snow.
And we'll see you next week on the 55-yard line.